In this video, we're going to be looking at the perfect tense in Latin. Hi everyone, and welcome back to bambasbat. Before we start, I want to give you this free guide to all the verb endings in Latin. It's got everything you need to help you identify all verbs, from the basics right the way through to the most advanced grammar. It has all the endings for every tense, voice, and mood, so it'll be really useful as you start getting familiar with these verb endings. You probably won't need it all at once, but one day it will all come in really handy, so go and download it now from the link in the description below. So let's get down to it, the perfect tense in Latin. Now I'm only going to do active verbs in this video. If you want passive verbs, that's a separate video that will be on my channel soon. So the perfect tense in Latin, what on earth is that? To start with, the perfect tense is what's called a completed action in the past. It's an action that happened at a point in time and is over. I walked into a door. This is a good example. At one point in time, I walked into a door. The verb walked shows me that it's over. I'm not still walking into the door. Walked is in the perfect tense, and in Latin that would be very clear from the ending. So when you see a perfect tense in Latin, the important thing to remember is ed. This is how you should aim to translate it. But of course, English likes to be difficult, so while walked fits my rule, ran, sat, heard, don't. Just keep in mind that the perfect tense has a past action which is completed. So you can also translate it using have or has, such as I have walked to the shop, he has thrown away his socks. So keep that at the back of your mind as we go through in case that makes more sense in the context of the sentences. So it can be I walked or I have walked. Now, while the imperfect tense is really easy to remember with the rule of BA, and the future and pluperfect are pretty self-evident too, the perfect is a bit more of a challenge to spot. However, people have been learning Latin for literally thousands of years, so there just so happens to be a really helpful way to know and recognise perfect tenses. In your dictionary, verbs are glossed like this: porto, portare, portavi, portatus. These are called the four principal parts of verbs. The first is the present tense first person singular, I carry. The second is the present active infinitive, to carry. Skipping the third, the fourth is what's called the perfect passive participle, having been carried. However, the third is what we want today. This is the perfect first person singular, and what it shows us is something called the perfect stem. It's there to show us how verbs change in Latin when they're in the perfect tense. As you can see from this example, porto doesn't change a lot, but it does change a bit. It's similar to the present stem, but we've added a V in a different ending. This V is one of my perfect signifiers, and we'll look at some others in a minute. So to form the perfect stem in Latin, we take this third principal part, the perfect stem, and then we add our person ending. For example, the third person, singular ending, and we get portavit. Now, the perfect endings are a bit different to the usual ost, must, is, n endings that can manage to take us through a lot of the tenses. For the perfect, we have isti it, imus istis erunt. As you can see, it's a whole new set of verb endings to get your head around, but there are some similarities in the third singular and plural and the first person plural, which hopefully can help you out. So portavi means I carried or I have carried. However, although a lot do, not all verbs use a V as a perfect signifier. There are a few to choose from. I like to call them the Sussex verbs, as you can use the letters from the word Sussex to show some other signifiers to remember as well as that V from portavi. Here are some examples of Sussex verbs. As you can see, there's a wide range of signifiers, but don't panic. It seems overwhelming, but don't forget, your dictionaries and vocab lists should all gloss verbs using the principal parts. So when you learn vocab, make sure you learn the principal parts of verbs. Feels like a big task, but you'll find it really helps a heck of a lot, especially when it comes to the really irregular ones, such as ferro, ferre, tuli, latus. That one just goes bonkers. But it will really help you to remember what the perfect stem is. So keep these endings in mind just in case you forget the principal parts of some of the trickier ones, because even when the stem changes insanely like ferro, the endings will match this perfect ending table. Let's try some examples in Latin. Here are 6 sentences. Now remember, in Latin the verb is often at the end of the sentence or clause. As usual, I've got the vocab down the side with all the principal parts of the verbs listed. And I've also got the table of perfect endings at the bottom to help you. If you want to go at translating these on your own, pause the video here. Otherwise, I'm going to go through the meanings of these sentences now. So number 1, Sewi adwelam festinarverant. Always find the verb first, as it tells you what else to look out for in the sentence. In this case, the verb is festinarverant. Now I know from the erant ending, it's a perfect, and it's a third person plural. They hurried. It's got my V signifier, which is really helpful, but just in case I've forgotten, I've still got that erant ending, which can only be the perfect ending. Now I look for a nominative to match it, and Sewi works here, the slaves. Adwilam rounds it off, to the house. Altogether, the slaves hurried to the house. Remember, you can also translate it as have hurried if that makes more sense in your translation. For number 2, Salve mater clamavisti. Now for this one we have speech marks, so I'm expecting some sort of speaking verb. I know it sounds obvious, but it's really easy to forget. So clamavisti is the verb, and I know that it's a second person singular. You shouted. Now I can do inside the speech marks. Salve means hello, and mater is mum or mother. So the sentence means, hello mother, you shouted. Remember, you can move the verb if it makes more sense, so you could say, you shouted, hello mother. Salve actually comes from saluto, as you can see in the vocab list of verbs, so I put it in the verb section because it is a derivative of that verb. For number 3, senex juventem salutavit. My verb here is salutavit, and it means he greeted. So far, all of these verbs have had my V perfect signifier, but even if I don't notice that, they have the distinctive perfect endings too. Senex as a nominative singular matches my third person singular ending, so the old man is in charge of the verb. Juventem is a third declension accusative singular, so altogether, the old man greeted the young man. Number 4, quid fecimus. Fecimus is a verb that changes a lot in the perfect stem. If you look in the vocab list, you'll see it's facio in the present tense, but the third principal part changes to feci. So this means we did. Quid means what, so here we're going to be best using our secondary meaning of the perfect tense. What have we done? Number 5, ego cum amicis ambulavi. Ambulavi is a first person singular, so I'm in charge of the verb. Ego means I and just emphasizes who's doing it. So I walked, and then cum amicis finishes the sentence off. I walked with friends. And finally, number 6, pecuniam puellarum invenistis. Again, the verb's at the end, and it's another one that doesn't necessarily have the obvious perfect signifier. Invenistis is a second person plural. You found. You can see from the vocab list that in the perfect it's just inveni, no perfect signifier there. Then I find an accusative, which is pecuniam, money, and finish it off with puellarum. This is a genitive plural, so shows me who possessed the money. You, plural, found the money of the girls, or you have found the girls, plural, money. And that's the perfect tense in Latin. Don't forget to download the complete guide to Latin verbs from the link in the description below for absolutely free. It will really help you as you practice recognizing your different tense endings. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on bambasbat.